It's Promo 1701 here, and today we will be reviewing the third episode of Doctor Who Flux, Series 13, Once Upon a Time. This one's been a really hard one to kind of organize in my mind, because this episode really is just all over the place, the way it keeps jumping back and forth from here to here to here to here. Even the characters, when the camera is staying on them and the story is staying on them, they're jumping in different places. So it's really hard to keep this one in my mind. It is. It's like just a mush in my mind. It is like confetti in my mind, trying to keep it organized. I liked the episode. Let me start off with that. I did like the episode, even if it does dive kind of into the Timeless Children stuff, which I don't like. I don't like the Timeless Children stuff. I don't like the Timeless Child idea. I didn't like the Timeless Children episode. And I didn't like the Cartmel Master Plan either. I very much like the Doctor being a below average Time Lord who just went away because he was bored and is out seeing the universe and just happens to find himself in situations where he helps out. Like most of what classic Doctor Who is. I enjoy that. I don't really like the Doctor being more than that. I don't even like him being an average Time Lord. I like the fact that he's kind of, for a Time Lord, he's kind of below average. He has experience, but not necessarily the book smarts. Whereas Romana, for example, had the book smarts and not exactly the experience. So I like that. So I don't like any kind of idea of the Doctor being space Jesus. That's always bothered me. I don't like the fact that every main character has to be some kind of chosen one. They have to be special. I like the idea that an average Joe can be like the Doctor or Luke Skywalker, even though that's not the case either, or something like that. That being said, I'm not gonna blame this episode for really diving into that, because it's not the episode's fault. That's an underlying problem that has been established in the Whittaker era as a whole. The episode itself I liked. It's so everywhere. I love the very beginning when it's showing the last few moments of War of the Sontarans from the Doctor's point of view, when everything's going through her head and time seems to be moving slower. Because that's a very Doctor thing. We kind of had that established before, like with Capaldi, how he would go into his own mental TARDIS in Heaven Sent. Because the Doctor does. He thinks really quick at a faster level. And that really does feel like the Doctor working everything out in her head to where time seems to be moving slowly around her. Even the classic Doctors, you could just always see when the wheels are turning. Like in Planet of Evil, when Tom Baker kind of has that faraway look at times, that alien look, you can tell the wheels are turning in his head. It's like that here. It's nice to see from her point of view the wheels turning and her figuring out what she needs to do. I like that. It's a good start off. The whole being in the time stream thing is interesting. At first I was kind of trying to figure out why the Doctor was in a different coat, and then of course it gives you the impression she's in the future with Yaz and Dan and Vinder there. It's a neat reveal that that's actually her past, and it kind of makes you wonder why she's wearing a different coat. That's just to kind of trick you into thinking you're in the future and she's got a new coat. It does a good job of that. It really is misdirection, her being in that dark coat instead of her regular gray cloak. Because of that, that's really clever. But then her seeing the Joe Martin Doctor, spoilers if you haven't seen it, her seeing the fugitive Doctor in the mirror was really neat. One, it's nice to see Joe Martin come back, even if we don't really get much of her, but she does a good job of us understanding that these events happened during Joe Martin's incarnation of the Doctor. And she has other people with her, like the one that looks like Dan is actually Chewbacca, whatever his name is, we're going to call him Chewbacca, is actually Chewbacca from the first episode. That's pretty cool. Him being referenced as a dog kind of gave it away, and his little stasis weapon. And it makes me wonder if the one that looks like Yaz might actually be the Time Lord that was tracking her down during Fugitive of the Jadoon, the one that got killed when the gun backfired. I wonder if that's her, because Joe Martin's Doctor have talked about how they worked together before, her and that other Time Lord. And then maybe the one that's disguised as Vinder might actually be the one that helped her escape and was hiding with her on Earth when she was in disguise. Lee, I think his name was. I wonder if that's actually him. It'd be interesting to see if that's how that plays out. I'm kind of curious. And of course, it's interesting to they capture Swarm and Azure easier than I would have expected, because Swarm and Azure are built up as this huge threat in the first two stories, almost godlike, almost like the Time Lords in the War Games, you know, with the powers they have, with the flux they're controlling, so forth and so forth. And to see how easy the Doctor takes them down in the past is kind of surprising. And I guess it's got to be simply because the Time Lords existed back then. This does actually a really good job of showing how powerful the Time Lords were. I always love, like in the War Games, I love the Time Lords in the War Games when they're like gods. And I love in State of Decay when it talks about when the Time Lords fought the vampires and the King Vampire and beat them with the mighty bow ships and stuff. You know, you get that impression the Time Lords were a force to be to deal with. They were a threat. They were dangerous if you screwed with them. So I kind of like that here, and that's how I look at it, is back in the past. That's why Swarm and Azure were able to be beaten so easily, is because the Time Lords were there, and the Time Lords were the Time Lords. The you don't screw with them Time Lords. And in current time, the reason why Swarm and Azure are so deadly are because the Time Lords are gone. At least it looks like for the most part. And maybe that's why Swarm was able to break out, is he sensed in that future when the Time Lords weren't there to threaten him anymore. Maybe he was able to break away because the force guarding him, the Time Lord force, maybe wasn't as strong, so he was able to break out. Or maybe he just bided his time until he knew the Time Lords were gone, so he wouldn't have anyone who could recapture him, so he bided his time until he felt their presence gone from the universe. So I like the fact that that could be why he seems more deadly, and Azure seems more deadly, is because the Time Lords aren't there to fix things anymore. And that's pretty neat. I liked seeing Dan's potential girlfriend back. I like the actress who plays her. I kind of figured everything with Peacekeeper, or whatever his name is, Passenger. With Passenger, I kind of figured that had something to do with her, and that she'd either been converted into him or was trapped in him or something like that. It was kind of an easy connection to make. So finding out I was right about that, I was like, okay, I kind of see that. I didn't realize there were multiple passengers. That's interesting. Although the Doctor in the past sneaking one in with the Morian, it seems kind of plot convenience, honestly. I wouldn't see how you would be able to do that. Also, it does a really bad job of showing in the past of that place being surrounded, because all we see is the Doctor and the other three go in. But she talks about, we've gotten you beaten, you might as well surrender now. Banishment or execution or exile or whatever, because we have you surrounded. And it's almost like it's doing that classic Who thing of trying to give you the illusion there's more people there than there are. Because, in classic Who, limited budget, not a lot of extras. You'd have 3 or 4 Daleks trying to pretend to be 100 Daleks, or 3 or 4 unit soldiers trying to pretend to be a dozen unit soldiers. Things like that. They were always having to do a less is more approach and make the dialogue try to cover it. It's almost like they're doing that here, even though they should have the technology and the budget to have more people. You never really see people surrounding this place. You just see those 4. And I don't know. Chibnall is a very classic Who fan. Maybe he was doing it because of that. It's just weird. I would have liked to have seen this army of Time Lords surrounding this place, ready to move in if they felt they needed to. It is really hard to review this episode. It just jumps around so much. So Dan's stake in this now is rescuing his sort of girlfriend. You can still see the friction between Yaz and the Doctor, which kind of reminds me between the 10th Doctor and Martha. Martha and the 10th Doctor, where, naturally Martha fancied him, but he didn't feel that way. He was still thinking about Rose. So there was that little bit of friction there, and that's why she left. That is why she left. She recognized it wasn't healthy, and she left. We're kind of having this issue with Yaz, where the 13th Doctor really has these trust issues. She does not open up, which to be fair is not exclusive to her Doctor. Some of the Doctors are more closed off than others. With the 3rd and 4th Doctor with companion departures, that you get that impression of a lot not being said. But the 3rd Doctor and Joe, with the 4th Doctor and Sarah, you really get that impression there's a lot not being said there. So here, and plus it's such a personal matter for her, not knowing who she is, not knowing her past, and how frustrated she is when she gets kicked out of her time stream. And you can tell she's just frustrated and irritated, and has a very understandable response of kind of not wanting to be bothered, not wanting to talk to Yaz. You know, that, does everything have to be a debate? That really does, though, have the sounds of a very toxic relationship. Does everything have to be a debate? Go inside. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the Doctor and Yaz, because I feel like Yaz is only going to be able to take so much of that before she just blows her top. It's interesting to see their relationship, how it's developed since we saw them last in Revolution of the Daleks, because you do get that impression a lot of time passed between Revolution of the Daleks and the start of Flux. And kind of see if the Doctor's actions here and her not confiding in Yaz, and Yaz kind of really needing her to do that to kind of grow their bond or relationship or whatever, and how that's going to affect their relationship. The woman who's the younger girl who's the story jumps back and forth between, she's interesting. Seeing her escape the Daleks, yeah, right, but okay. Seeing her escape the Cybermen, seeing her win that fight with the Cybermen doesn't make sense to me. I have seen the Cybermen fight armies and dominate them. Look at what the Cybermen do in Classic Who when they go up against people with weapons. And suddenly here's this one girl who thinks she's Ratchet in Transformers the movie sitting there. First off, if there are 3 million Cybermen or billion or whatever they said, why aren't there more of them attacking? There's like 5 of them. There's only like 5 of them, and she's sitting there, and she just kills them that easy? Really? 5 Cybermen can't take one barely grown person? It makes the Cybermen look a little weak. You know, you figured in those Classic Who Cybermen would have shown her. You know, Earthshock Cybermen, some 60s Cybermen, yeah. She would have had a lot harder time. I get she's got more advanced guns, but there's one of her and a bunch of them, and it's one of those, my suspension of disbelief has to go, okay, we're trying to show that she's tough. I get it. And she's obviously going on about her love, which, to be fair, I did not connect with Vendor. I probably should have. It's one of those things when I saw it, I was like, okay. And then I was like, okay, I probably should have caught that, because I know Vendor was leaving that message to someone he loved at some point too. I should have put that together. I just didn't. That whole little subplot, I'm kind of on. It's not bad. It's just kind of whatever. She's trying to find him. He's trying to get back to her. Everything with him, I didn't really care for either. I get he tried to do the right thing by reporting the Grand Serpent. What a name. He really is a snake in the grass, though, so I guess it fits. For violating the Constitution, and his commander immediately being like, sit down. And him getting transferred to that outpost as punishment. That's pretty much how politics in this country works. And probably, to be honest, politics in most places work. That's just how it is. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't the right thing for you, so to speak, or it's certainly not the best thing or the most fortuitous thing for you to do. That's just how it is. It's sad but true. An interesting reflection of real life there, I think. But Vendor's not a bad character. I just find his story in this episode less interesting with everything else going on, I guess. I like the angel stuff with Yaz. The angels are used very sparingly here, but because of that, it's probably the most effective they've been. Easily the most effective they've been since Flesh and Stone, possibly even since Blink. Using them in that sparing manner to kind of lead into the next episode where they're going to play a much bigger role. But I liked it appearing in the video game and then popping out of the video game. That was a cool moment. I liked it. Very reminiscent of Flesh and Stone, of course, but I still liked it. And then when it popped out of her phone at the end in the TARDIS and was working the controls, I like the fact because the angels are old. It mentions that in Blink. They're old, like beginning of time, old. And they're intelligent, obviously. So I love the idea that a weeping angel could work a TARDIS. I believe that. I can follow that. And how it's working the TARDIS. I like how the lights are flashing and it's steadily moving. I enjoyed that. A nice little callback to Blink. I enjoy that. I like the fact that it takes a very classic approach here of basically introducing us to the next episode at the end of the story. Classic Who did this a lot, especially 60s Who, where the end of a story would also show the lead into the next story, like how the end of Edge of Destruction shows the beginning of Marco Polo, or the end of the Moon Base shows the beginning of Macroterra. The end of Faceless Ones basically is what starts in motion the events of Evil of the Daleks. I like that. It's a very classic Who approach. And again, Chris Chibnall is a classic Doctor Who fan, so I like to see that here. I like the lead in to the next story. I mean, they're all connected into one story. I get Flux is like that. But when I watched that, I very much got classic Who, 60s Who vibes of, hey, it's kind of leading us into the next story. And I appreciated it. I'm trying to organize my thoughts. There's a couple more things I wanted to say, but they're really slipping out of my head. This episode is all over the place. And it's done purposely. I'm not saying it does it badly. It's just, it's hard for the way my mind works to organize a good review. It's literally just, my mind's just jumping around. I liked the episode overall. I don't know how much I'll like it on a rewatch, but on a first watch, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's, like, the best thing ever. It's no mind robber, that's for sure. But I did very much enjoy it. I've liked where Flux has gone so far. We're actually halfway through Flux already. And again, how I'm going to like Flux is going to be very dependent on how it ends, how well it sticks the landing. Although, to be honest, I fully expect the crises of Flux to spill over into the specials, at least the next special. I don't think it'll all wrap up in Flux, so this might not even be the halfway point for this story we're on right now. And how it sticks the whole landing of these events is going to determine what I think of these individual episodes as well, since they're all tied together. But as of now, I've been enjoying Flux. I mean, I enjoyed most of Series 12. Didn't really like Series 11 at all, but enjoyed most of 12. But I like Flux. It's a good step up. Jodie really does feel like the Doctor a lot more here. I will give her that. She really does. I finally feel like she's connecting with the character and acting like the character. It's the first time I've really felt like Jodie Whittaker was the Doctor is in Flux, and she pulls that off really well. So that's my thoughts on Once Upon a Time. I'm sure there's a few things I left out I'll think of later. This episode, it's such a jumble. The way it's jumping around. But I liked it. I did like it. So what do you think of Once Upon a Time? Let me know down in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing what you guys think. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications, so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and would like to contribute to what I do, there is a link to that down in the description below. If you have a minute, check that out. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.